fellow Toastmasters, and we don't have any guests today. The word of the day is cryptozoology, and the definition is the study of evidence tending to substantiate the existence of creatures whose existence is unproven. So an example of this would be Nessie, or the Loch Ness Monster, or Bigfoot. As part of my role today, I will be counting how many times the word of the day is used, and then I will also be watching for colorful language used in today's speeches, also connecting words, ahs, ums, ands, all those so's, all those types of words, and then I will give a report at the end.
This is a very interesting word, and I'm really curious to see how folks are going to fit this in. The one thing that came to my mind is that I need a cryptozoologist when I'm trying to find my son to get him to clean his room. So think about that, maybe how you might feed it into your talks in a little bit different spin. We also have a timer in the back who will come up and introduce us to the timer roll and the times, well, and what she's going to do today.
As you all know, my name is Jenny Allen, and I have no idea how I'm going to fit the word of the day, cryptozoology, into my report as a timer, but I will try to say cryptozoology. I am the timer for today, and as you all know, timing is so important when we're giving work unit presentations or formal presentations. It's respectful to our audience, and it's good to stay within our time. So I will be timing those of you giving speeches today. Each one of you, Amy has given me the times for our formal speakers. For those of you that are speaking, when you have 2 minutes left at the end of your speech, I will hold up the green card. When there is 1 minute left, I will hold up the yellow card. And when their time has expired, I will hold up the red card. If you continue to go over your time, Tom, I will buzz you 1 minute after your time is up. 2 minutes after, I'll probably hit the buzzer twice if I feel empowered to do that. For our table topics, those are meant to be 1 to 2 minutes. At 1 minute, I will hold up the green card. 1 minute and 30 seconds, I will hold up the yellow card. And at the end of 2 minutes, I will hold up the red card. And finally, our evaluators today have 2 to 3 minutes to give an evaluation. Again, at 2 minutes, I will hold up the green card. 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the yellow card. And at the end of 2 minutes, I will hold up the red card. Thank you.
Without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker for today. Tom will be giving a speech from the CC manual. It is his third speech, a 6 to 8 minute time frame that he's requested, and the title is Let's Fail. Tom.
To not succeed, to not do, to lose strength, to fade or die away, to be deficient, to disappoint. These are the definitions of the word fail, according to Merriam-Webster. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, when I was a child in elementary school studying cryptozoology, I was conditioned to believe that failure was not an option. I associated failure as a bad thing, as a negative thing, as one of these very definitions. This is because every time I came home from school with a midterm or a final report card grade of a C or less, I was grounded for 3 weeks. No friends, no birthday parties, no sleepovers, no video games. For 3 weeks! Has our mindset toward failure changed over 20 years? Or is this still the perception of our society as we focus on test scores and grades, academic successes, monumental achievements? Throughout this speech, I'm going to discuss some tidbits from John Maxwell's book, Failing Forward. And it is my intention that we'll reevaluate our perception of what it means to fail and to succeed. According to Maxwell, achieving people, the difference between achieving people and average people isn't their family background, wealth, morals, or even hardships faced. The difference between average people and achieving people is their perception of and the reaction to failure. He discusses how we associate failure as being a negative because of how we were conditioned with the world around us. And he tries to have us alter this perception and view failure not as a negative, but as a positive, by donning on a different pair of lenses. He says, failure is not this moment. It's not an event. It's not even a test. Failure is a process, and it's an essential component to life. Common misperceptions about failure. We can just walk around it. We can avoid it. Failure is an event. Failure is the enemy. Failure is irreversible. Failure is final. However, this is not true. Rather, failure is stepping stones. It's lessons to be learned, possibly repeated by us numerous times throughout our lifetime. And failure is human. Thomas Edison once said, there's an adage that everyone fails, or that everyone falls, but not everyone gets up. It's not failure for us to fall, it's failure for us to refuse to get back up. Thomas Edison once said, many of life's failures are people who didn't realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Winston Churchill said, success is stumbling from one failure to the next with no loss of enthusiasm. How do we change this perception of failure, though? It's easy for me to say it, for us to read it. It's much more challenging for us to change our behaviors and our attitudes toward it, though. To do this, we have to recognize Rome wasn't built in a day. Pluto's no longer a planet. We don't run before we walk. In other words, these things all take time for them to evolve. Now, Maxwell describes several characteristics of people that do fail and why they fail because of these characteristics. And he challenges each of us to examine whether we possess these, and if so, to change. 1, poor people skills. Teddy Roosevelt once said, the most important single ingredient in the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. 2, they have a negative attitude. They view the glass as half empty. 3, they're not a good fit for the situation. They're a triangle trying to fit into a circle's environment. 4, they lack focus. They're trying to do too many tasks. 5, they have a weak commitment. They're not Scotty on the Enterprise saying, I'm giving her all I got, Captain. 6, they're unwilling to change. Is it true that we can't teach an old dog new tricks, or can we learn to adapt and become flexible to our situation? 7, they have a shortcut mindset. They're impatient, and they're always trying to cut corners. 8, they rely only on their talents. Maxwell describes how if we would combine our talents with a strong work ethic, we'd be explosive. Michael Jordan is renowned as one of the greatest basketball players, if not the greatest of all time. He's explosive, and he says the key to success is failure. 9, they don't have any goals. They're driving down the road with their eyes closed. To contrast this, he points out 7 beliefs that achievers have toward failure that can help us reshape our thinking. Achievers reject rejection. Achievers see failure as temporary. Achievers see failure as isolated incidents. Achievers focus on their strengths. Achievers have realistic expectations. Achievers vary their approaches to achievement. And achievers bounce back. It is said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If this is true, it could and should be said for failure, as is how we perceive and how we react to something as to whether we actually believe that it was failure. To help us reshape our image and definition of failure, let's dawn a new age, a new paradigm where failure is part of success. Teddy Roosevelt once said, "It is hard to fail, but it is worse to never have tried to succeed." And our very own Joe Sharp once told me, "Today is the results of yesterday. Tomorrow's influenced by today." With that said, let's view tomorrow's failures with stepping stones of today. Madam Toastmaster.
Let me know if you need an evaluation sheet. We'll take 1 minute for each of us to fill out a brief evaluation for the speech. I'd like to introduce our second speaker for today, Mr. Joe Sharp. Joe will be giving a 7-minute speech. Now, of that 7 minutes, he will have a 4-minute talk, and then we'll have 3 minutes for questions and answers. So please participate in that point in time in the last part of the 7 minutes. The title of Joe's speech, Benefits of Madness. Joe.
Well, you've just been given a set of rules on how normal people can become successful. What I'm going to talk about today is how abnormal people can become successful.
Yes.
So it isn't really, well, I won't say it's not relevant here, but anyway. For a long, long time, there's been a suspicion that mental unbalance is connected with creativity. I'd like to give you a quote that's pretty amazing. Aristotle said, "Why is it that all those who have become above average, either in philosophy, politics, poetry, or the arts, seem to be melancholy? Some to such an extent that they're even seized by the diseases of the black bile," which is pretty deep depression. Dr. Gamey, a Harvard psychiatrist, wrote a best-selling book called First Rate Madness. I'm going to give you a handout covering that in a few minutes. In times of crisis, a history of severe clinical depression can actually improve a leader's empathy and realism, his ability to accept radically unpleasant things. In addition, a history of mania can improve a leader's creativity. I'll give 8 examples that he talks about. I wish I could explain it in as much detail as he does, but I can't do it this time. Here are the 8 successful people who were all mad, or at least unbalanced. William Sherman, who won the war for Abraham Lincoln, for Abraham Lincoln. Ted Turner, who created CNN. Winston Churchill, who Tom's already mentioned. Abraham Lincoln, who was noted to be depressed. Mahatma Gandhi, isn't so well known that he was depressed. And this is a big surprise, Martin Luther King. He never wrote about his depression, but he tried to commit suicide twice as a child. A clear sign of depression. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This was a maniac, creativity, and John Kennedy. These 8 people were mentioned in the book in detail, and in each case, their clinical background was established pretty clearly. Now he covers 5 healthy people who were failures. Just so you'll all feel comfortable. Richard Nixon, George McClellan, Neville Chamberlain, George H. Bush, Tony Blair. These were all healthy, normal people who succeeded in ordinary life, but failed when a crisis came up. Now there's a caution, of course, that I have to give. We're only giving a few cases, and that's not a statistical proof of anything. But even though a thing isn't proven, it might still be true. Now, one of the surprising things that he does in the book, which I will cover in a minute, was to pair Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King. They were separated by 100 years, but they were both clinically depressed and very realistic people. They could deal with really tough problems. And he claims that Lincoln changed slavery into segregation, and King used non-violent opposition to change segregation to diversity. A rather interesting pair of people to combine. Now, I'd like to know if you have any comments or questions. I'm sure Tom has a few comments because I'm essentially not disagreeing with you, but I'm looking from a slightly different point of view. Would anybody like to make a comment or have any questions?
How did the author determine that these 8 leaders were depressed? Did he go back through medical records, or was it just anecdotal evidence?
Well, the question was, how did he establish their abnormality? And it was different in each case. Lincoln wrote in great detail about his depression. King did not mention any of it. And so he interviewed people who worked with King. And of course he knew about the suicides. Sherman was so nearly insane that he was removed from office for a while. But then he became sane, if you can call what he did sane, and he won the war, for better or for worse. So the answer is, the book covers in each case the data that was available. Some of it's more complete than others.
I have another question. Did he go into detail about Napoleon or Hitler or any of those individuals?
He definitely did talk about it.
Okay.
And in fact, he considered him sane.
I heard opposite
Most people
of that.
consider him insane, but he was pretty healthy, and he made a lot of sense from a war point of view. His value system was poor, but his sanity was not an issue.
I heard that he was depressed, though.
Well, that's discussed.
Okay.
And it was, a lot of people thought he was, but it wasn't actually wasn't clearly convincing. Are there any other comments or questions?
Just for kids, which category do you fit?
I'm going to answer your question remotely, somewhat different. The question was, what do I consider myself? I'm going to talk about my dad. My dad was a hypomanic. That means he worked very hard, he didn't sleep much, and he was willing to take chances. And he came up with a theory that won a case, a big case. A bunch of companies made promises to employees and then went bankrupt. And you can't sue a bankrupt company. So he sued the ship. It was a shipping company, a ferry company. And he sued all the people who bought those ships. He claimed that the ship owed money to the employees, even though the company had gone bankrupt. is an example of what the point he tries to make here, that unbalanced people see the world in a very novel way, some different way than anybody else would. And this is an example of doing that. I'm not gonna talk about myself here. That doesn't mean I won't someday. Are there any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for your participation. I'd like to finish by saying two things. Nietzsche once said, "That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger," which is true about these diseases. And now I have a handout to give with the help of Elizabeth. On the handout, you'll see a cover of the book and the testimonials behind it. And I've inserted something in the middle of the book. Could I have one to show? Right here is a white strip which says Google Galen Colbert. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name because it's an Iranian name. But Colbert interviews him on a 2-minute Google, and I promise you'll find it a big surprise. Like one of the questions was, were any of the candidates, that's the last thing I want to say. I hope you will use this idea to pick your next president. and he was asked, are any of the presidents insane enough to be considered able? And he said no. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, while Elizabeth comes around with the handout, if you wouldn't mind filling in a couple of comments for Joe. To start the introduction here for our third speaker. Al will be giving his third speech, Get to the Point from the Competent Communications Manual, 5 to 7 minutes for Al's speech, and the title is Baseball Life Lessons. Please help me welcome Al.
I thought about wearing my entire baseball uniform, but I thought that might be a little overboard. So. And I didn't know where I would change. Baseball is a lot like life. It's a day-to-day existence full of ups and downs. You make the most of your opportunities in baseball as you do in life. Ernie Harwell, the legendary broadcaster for the Detroit Tigers. In baseball, you have individual responsibility. And if you fail it, you get an error. But at the same time, your focus is on the common goal of the team to win. This is part of what resonates with people about baseball. This is how they would like society to work. Jed Rakoff, United States District Judge from New York. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Baseball is more than just a game. It's an athletic competition that I believe parallels life. Raymond Belliati developed what he considers to be nine principles of life in baseball. I find his principles actually to be very relevant to how each and every one of us should live our lives. I'd like to share just a few of those principles because I don't think I have time to get through all 9 of them. So, and again, I believe each of these is very pertinent to each one of us. The first one I want to share is no excuses. In baseball, you don't, or you shouldn't blame your teammates, the fans, the umpires, your coaches for your performance. Just as in life, as individuals, we shouldn't blame friends, coworkers, families, family members for things that happen to us and choices that we make. Excuses prevent all of us from learning through our mistakes, learning life lessons. We all have to remember we aren't perfect. Take responsibility for all you do in both your failures and your successes. I think this speech actually kind of goes along with Tom's speech a little bit. The second principle I wanted to share with you is play with honor. Always work hard in baseball and life. In baseball, you should run out every ground ball, every fly ball that you hit. And in life, you should work hard to do the best in anything you do, whether at work or in your family life. Never ridicule or criticize others. Carry yourself with pride and dignity. Show everyone both on and off the baseball field the values you hold dear. The third principle I wanted to share is be relentless. Never give up. In baseball, never give up until the final out. You're really never out of the game until that last out in the game. I've had the maybe unfortunate experience of both the fortunate and unfortunate experience of living through both of those types of experiences on the baseball field. So in baseball, you're never defeated unless you give up. And that's really the same with life. No opponent can make you give up. You make a conscious decision to give up. The same is true with how we live our lives. I try and work in cryptozoology, but I'm not sure that I can figure out a way as to how it pertains to this topic. I do see baseball as a microcosm of life. It's a series of mini competitions, intricacies, and strategies that are unmatched by any other sport. Life has many of the same complexities. There are many life lessons to be learned in baseball. And they relate to these 9 principles, but they include work ethic, dedication, self-discipline, leadership, attitude, accountability, and how to deal with adversity. And relate that back to Tom's speech in that baseball is really a game of failure. Or in a lot of cases, for example, a great hitter at the Major League Baseball level fails 7 out of 10 times he's up to bat. A 300 hitter in baseball is considered a top level player. As in baseball, the only things you can control are your actions and your attitude. Life, as in baseball, should be approached with enthusiasm, a positive attitude, and with appreciation for the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
let's take a minute to provide some feedback for Al. Couple of minutes for some table topics, and I've come up with some questions based on some of the conversations or topics that our speakers presented on today. I know all of us has a role here today, so I'm just going to ask for volunteers, so let me know if you'd like to participate. My first question for table topics is based on part of Tom's talk. He talked in the beginning about failure and how we define that, and feeling pressure to make the grade. My not senior, sophomore in high school is, freshman in high school, sophomore in high school is going through final exams at the moment. And I have put the pressure on for him to get a B, because when he does that, then he gets the good grade discount for my insurance bill. So that's his incentive and mine. But I'd like for someone, if they wouldn't mind, come up and tell us about a time when you were pressured to make the grade. Did you make it? Did you not make it? Tell us about that experience. Volunteer? Yeah.
Topic master, fellow Toastmasters, I would share with you an example of internal pressure to make the grade, not external. My parents did not set any rules about our grades. They just wanted us to do the very best we can. And I did okay in high school. Wasn't great at some things like chemistry or math, but I did okay. When I set myself a goal to get my bachelor's degree, returned to school, and the first class I got 4.0. And the next class I got a 4.0. And pretty soon I had this internal pressure to continue getting this 4.0. So it was kind of like a vicious cycle, and it was a lot of stress actually to just push myself to do that when I could have slacked off like some other people, but I just, I wanted to keep that 4.0. And so I did succeed at that, strangely enough. So it's interesting how one can go from just being an average, sort of okay student to a 4.0 and have it be all internally driven.
Things we do to ourselves to add stress and pressure through the course of our lives and even our days. I would like to ask another question. I think we maybe have time for one more. A little bit from Joe's speech. He made a comment in the beginning about normal people versus abnormal people. And while I'm not clinically trained to know the difference, I definitely have a perception of what that means. So another volunteer who might like to share a perception. What is a normal person versus an abnormal person? Or perhaps a trait that you might observe in people that you would consider to be normal versus abnormal. Volunteer? John, come on up.
Thank you, Dr. Master and Bogus. Thinking abnormal versus normal and the whole thing of growing up. There's a lot of pressure on me. I'm a preacher's kid, second generation preacher's kid. So I'm supposed to act a certain way and do this, and I have the red hair, so everyone knows who I type of kid. And I could be the class clown. I got in trouble for calling my first grade teacher Growler. I got out of it, but. These abnormalities kind of focus and change the way I still see that rebellious streak in me, and that sets up the bar or whatever. But hopefully I made the differences, the strange things, into a good thing in my life.
Oh, Joe, sure, go ahead.
One of the best traits of abnormality is to get in trouble.
To guess
Where
what
my
means you're
sons
saying.
land then.
Yeah.
Okay. In essence of time, I believe it is time for us to go into the evaluation portion of our meeting. So I'd like to call up our general evaluator to lead us through that. Elizabeth.
Hello, dear Toastmasters. I am your evaluator today. And as such, I will start with first introducing the evaluators, and at the end of the meeting, I will give a short introduction of how the meeting went on. Please help me welcome John, who will be evaluating Tom.
Back again. Those masters, especially Tom of Blitzvale. When I saw John Maxwell's book up here, I was excited or wondering, okay, what is he going to say about, to bring forward out of that book? Because I've read it a few years ago, and now you made me want to read it again. I've read a number of his books. I liked it how you started with the definition of what is failure and got us thinking. And you did a very good job of using the stage of, you moved from one side to the other side, but wasn't seem contrived or anything. And I love the example of the 3 weeks of grounding if you didn't get your B or above. The number of quotes that you were able to pull together and use them by memory, and as far as I know they're accurate, was amazing. I can't remember that kind of thing. So, and then the reasons why we fail. And listing out the 7 reasons. And I want to get the book out again and look and see, okay, what are those reasons that we fail, and am I doing some of these? Then you went into the 7 beliefs that the achievers have. And do we make the most of that possibility? And I may have some of these details right a little bit wrong, but my son was telling me a story of a young rich boy who was in the bogs in England and was basically sinking and drowning, whatever, and this man came and rescued him. And this young lad's father was very impressed and wanted to do something for this man who rescued his child. Well, so he put him all the way through college, all the way through school. That young lad that was rescued from the bog was Winston Churchill. The young boy who benefited from his father's actions was Ian Fleming. Ian? I always get the first name wrong. The scientist who invented penicillin. The penicillin eventually saved Winston Churchill's life. So that's an example that made me think about, are we going moving forward? I love your talk, Tom. The only thing I'd like to try and tie it together, or give us a little more of a roadmap at the beginning of where we're going throughout the whole thing.
Thank you, John, for providing Tom with your evaluation. I would like now to invite Ms. Deanna Constance, who will be evaluating Joe.
times fast. Joe, it's always a pleasure to hear your speeches, and I always feel inadequate when I'm evaluating you. You set some very high standards with your speeches, and this one, I will start off by saying I thought it was fascinating. The topic itself is very intriguing, and in my head I was trying to think of all the insane people I know who also happen to be brilliant leaders, and I know I came up with at least one that works here at Mayo, but they shall be nameless. Unless you buy me a drink.
Until you give your talk.
Right, exactly. Some points I would like to make, though, I found your sense of humor, and I think I detected a note of sarcasm today to be very appropriate for this topic, and it's always fun to listen to you when you bring in your sense of humor. I liked how you brought in quotes to your topic, and you had asked me to watch for clarity in your topic, and I think it was clear for the most part. The only suggestion I would have that you could make this stronger would be to bring in examples of how that person was depressed or insane. And you mentioned Martin Luther King's 2 attempted suicides, and that was a good example, but how was Abraham Lincoln clinically depressed? What were the manifestations? What were the signs that people saw? Those types of examples, and maybe bringing in a story as well, because you're so good at telling those stories that if you had a few anecdotes about those individuals, I think that would have made the speech stronger. And in conclusion, I would just like to say I am unbalanced and I do see the world differently, but I'm kidding, maybe not. I like the quotes that you brought in, especially that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Thank you, Joe.
Alrighty, and now is Mrs. Stern, who will be evaluating Alan. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Evaluator, General Evaluator. It's interesting when a non-sports person like myself has to do an evaluation for a strong, sports-focused speech. It gives me some perspective of why people like the sport. Again, I'm not a sports person. I'm more of a sports party person, so I go to sports parties not to watch the sports, but to just people watch. Sometimes the fans are almost as entertaining as the event. So with that being said, I liked all of your correlations on how do you associate baseball with life. On the other hand, for this speech, you had too many correlations that almost sounded like bullet points. And with that being said, it ties in with, you made a comment where I believe you said, I have both a good and a bad experience with that, but then you moved on. With all those bullet points, I would have loved to have heard exactly those, how that tied in with your speech. I think that was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was maybe an impromptu comment in your speech. I don't know if you had planned on making that comment, but when you did make the comment, I was waiting, and then you moved on. That would probably be the biggest thing I would change, as well as, there's a comment in here about reducing use of do notes. I don't know how you practice, but sometimes pretending I can do room, and just, I've started doing this, just talk your speech out, walk back and forth, that might help your confidence, as well as reduce the usage of your notes. And with, in the search for cryptozoology of the perfect speech, it is very elusive, but we can always try different things. You may fail, or you may succeed, but first step is where the journey of 1,000 miles starts. So, another quote.
Thank you, Chris. And now, I would like to ask the timer's report. Please welcome Jamie.
I still have not figured out how to get the word of the day for cryptozoology. I'm really important, but the other speakers did a very good job with that. Tom gave our first speech and asked for 6 to 8 minutes, and Tom, your speech length was 7 minutes and 34 seconds. Joe had a 7-minute total speech, 4 minutes on the talk. Joe, your talk was 4 minutes and 26 seconds, and the overall speech with question and answer was 8 minutes and 55 seconds. Alan, you had asked for 5 to 7 minutes, you just went slightly over at 7:08. Deanna, 1 to 2 minutes for the table topics, 1 minute and 35 seconds. John, 1 minute and 8 seconds. And then for our evaluators, we have 2 to 3 minutes. John was 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Deanna, you were 2 minutes and 36 seconds. And Chris, just slightly over 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Well, very good. We started a little bit late. I think we're going to end on time. Very nice.
And now, Superintendent Haley.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. All right, in the essence of time, I will go quickly. I think that we had a lot of quotes today and a lot of very good use of speech. Some of my favorite ones are tomorrow's stepping stones are failures of today. I like the joke that Tom made in his speech about when he was talking about weak